thank you all for being here today. So welcome. Hope you've all had lovely summers and managed to recharge your batteries. I know a guy who recently went on a meditation retreat where he didn't speak to anybody for 10 days, which I'm not sure is comparable to what I did. I was in Marbella, so that sounds like absolute bliss right now. And I'm sure Ellie's in Butlin, so could probably do with a meditation retreat when she's finished.
Please, no one talk to me.
So for those of you who don't know, BD Matters is our sort of in-house training and development arm. So we provide masterclasses, accelerators, and a thriving community to agency owners, new business people to supercharge their growth and success. And obviously we're heading into Q4, so really, I'm sure lots of people raring to go. And today we're going to be discussing networking, partnerships, and referrals that have all, to me, become sort of increasingly important parts of a new business strategy as the sort of recent times and years have gone on. So I'm very delighted to be joined by Stephen Knight from Pimento, Ellie Howe at Reflect Digital, and Dave Plunkett from Collaboration Junkie. So I'll just add you guys. I'll let you guys do you want to do 30-second intro? Start with you, Stephen. Once he finds the unmute button.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Well, afternoon. So I'm Stephen Knight. I run a network of independent agencies, which has been going now nearly 20 years. And we help businesses through networking and coordinating and helping them with their new business strategies. Prior to that, I was with the Walt Disney Company. I was the CMO for Disney in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And I've spent a fair amount of time working both client and agency side over the years. Started out my formative career in advertising. So done the above the line, the below the line, the client side and the agency side, and finally ended up basically doing what I do, I think, probably best, which is helping independent agencies grow.
Very nice. Ellie?
Yeah, so I'm a partnerships director for Reflect Digital. We're a digital marketing agency where everything is underpinned by human behavior. So we look at what is driving people to make the decisions and then supercharging results off the back of that. It's really super interesting stuff.
Very cool. Dave?
Yeah, hi. I run a consultancy brand called Collaboration Junkie. We help brands identify, nurture, scale partnership and referral opportunities. A bit like Stephen, I've got a background in community. So I grew a membership organisation to a couple of thousand purely through referrals, and then ran a benefit business providing access to the SME market for big global brands. So I've kind of lived and breathed this stuff for nigh on 20 years now.
Great.
Me too. I have too. Me as well. I have.
I think I've got the perfect people here. So we're going to talk about, like, obviously the importance of networking, how to build and sustain partnerships, how we can leverage referrals for growth, and hopefully we might have time for a bit of Q&A at the end, depending. But feel free to drop questions in the chat as we go, and then you can sort of jump in and ask questions. It's quite open and discursive, this. And we're also recording it, so we can share the recording afterwards. So first question, which, as I say, can be to any of you guys who want to jump in. Like, have you got a story of how networking has kind of significantly impacted your business or career? Don't know who wants to jump in on that first. Nobody.
I can. It's absolutely made my career. My career is built on the people that I've met, the connections that I've made through networking, and my whole professional, all my professional pals, really. I don't think I'd be where I am today without that.
Yeah, no, I mean, same. I've always sort of been out there networking. I mean, some people like networking more than others, and it sort of comes naturally to them, doesn't it? But like, was that always something you intended to do, Ellie? Was that kind of like a strategy you had in mind, or it just was sort of...
No, not at all. I absolutely couldn't stand it. I'm not a natural networker at all. I'm quite an out there extrovert person, but when it comes to actually talking about who I am and trying to connect with strangers, it just, like, I'm in a cringe. I can't stand it. So no, it's not something that comes naturally to me. But I think the more, we'll talk about it later in the session with me, but the more authentic that you are and the more you can really find why you want to connect with people and what value you can bring to them, it makes the whole thing a lot less painful, I think.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's talk about some of those steps. So, I mean, Stephen, you obviously, Pimento run lots and lots of events, networking events, and bring people together. Like, what are sort of common mistakes or misconceptions people have when trying to network? And have you got any advice to maybe, how to approach that, or how to avoid making some of those mistakes?
Go, Adam. Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is you've got to recognize that you've got to build a relationship before you try and sort of sell to somebody. And it's like the relationship, a personal relationship in life, or building relationships with friends, family, whatever it happens to be. You have to, first and foremost, develop a understanding, insight by asking questions, not expecting basically to be promoting yourself or what you do. So establish a relationship, invest time to understand the other person, both their business needs and their professional needs. And really, it's important you're genuine and you're authentic, and you approach any sort of networking opportunity with a high degree of sincerity, because people sense that if you're not being authentic, and that obviously doesn't help to build trust. And what you're really there to do is basically, we're all people, whatever stage of our lives, whether it was back at school, whether when you were dating, whatever, when you were creating your first business, whatever it happened to be, all of it hinges around our ability to be able to actually influence and develop relationships with people. And like it or not, we're all networking all the time. We're all trying to build those relationships. And it shouldn't be for a sense of basically trying to sell something. It should be a sense of getting to understand and building a personal connection in order that you can begin to understand their needs.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. So you've got to sort of resist those urges to jump in and sell. And ultimately, we want to work with people that we like, right? And that we have values with. So Dave, just in your experience, just be interested to get your experience in how you've approached networking, and then possibly ways in which you've kind of followed up with people after networking events. What do you have a general approach, or is it kind of a bit more intuition?
I do have a general approach, but it is something that does come naturally to me. And I think something you mentioned there, and Stephen pointed out, that sometimes people associate networking with events and being in a room full of people, but we're always networking. And networking is just building connections and adding value to them, and hopefully then extracting value at the right time in a way that suits everyone. I think so my approach to networking is absolutely that. It's to and it's to be interested before trying to be interesting. I think that's the thing, is genuinely be interested in other people, be curious about them. If you've got a genuine passion for other people and knowing what they're about, then you'll form a deeper connection. And from there, stuff happens. And I think my approach to following up, the fortune's in the follow-up, we've all heard that before, right? Do it. Like, so many people don't do it. And it's even easier now to not do it. Like, that's why I still love a business card, right? My business cards say a bit about me. They're quite fun. But also, when I get a business card, I'll scribble something on it that reminds me to follow up in the right way. Like, people go, oh, should we just connect on LinkedIn? I do it, but I always get someone to scan me, because I don't accept them until I'm back at a computer and I can follow up with them properly. And for me, it's just something useful. And if you can't do something useful, something personal, show them that you were genuinely listening to them, that you weren't just waiting for your turn to talk so that you could maybe get that pre-selling or whatever it may be. Like, send them a recommendation to another event, or remember something, or if you can make an introduction or suggest something, just try and either add value or make them smile, I think is my main thing. But the first thing is to do it, because most people don't.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And a lot of people, I guess, are looking at that person as if, are they adding value to you? But people should be thinking about how you can add value to them, because value is not always obvious at first, and where it might come out. It might be that they're not valuable to them, but their best mate is, so but you've missed that opportunity because you've been too short-minded, I suppose, in thinking like that. And Ellie, obviously, there's like Dave says, there's lots of different events. You've got online events now that are, quite a lot. You've got large events, smaller events, intimate gatherings. How do you generally tend to approach these kind of events?
It depends what it is, really. Large events still send that feeling of fear into the pit of my stomach. So I would take my time and brace myself beforehand. So, I always take a couple of deep breaths and steel myself before I walk into large events. And I would then sort of suss out the lay of the land, have a look around, see who looks like your kind of people. I tend to go for the smiley open ones. I always have a couple of stories up my sleeve, and this might sound inauthentic, but it isn't. It's just you preparing to be the best version of yourself. So I have a couple of stories, a couple of interesting things that might have happened at work, or they might be completely work related, you know, whether it's the holiday that you're on, like I'm currently in some Butlins hell with my family at the moment, or I don't know, like a cracking thing that you saw at the theatre, just something interesting that is a way you can express yourself without having to do that eggy thing of, oh God, I'm here for work, I'm here to sell myself, this feels really awkward. And then just really, like Dave said, just try and engage as best you can. I ask a lot of questions first, and delve into who the person is that I'm talking to. Tend not really to say terribly much about myself at first, and try your hardest to enjoy it.
No, really, and I love those points, and I think you're right. It's good to have those kind of, I don't know what you call them, but like just little things that help you, kind of like a story or something that helps you get in. I always think like, you know, because going to events by yourself is so difficult. Like even, you know, and I'm quite extrovert, but I still cringe up at that awkwardness when you walk into a room. But I do genuinely think like if you know someone in the room, or if you go with another contact, it really helps you kind of get in there, as long as you don't spend the entire evening
Oh,
just
it does, but there's that
to that
Velcro fear,
party.
isn't it? That you've got your wing person, so then you keep like gravitating to each other. Especially you must see it all the time, especially in the agency sphere. You'll have like your gang that you go to events with, and then you'll just end up hanging out with your gang and think, oh God, I didn't meet anyone at that event because I was just busy, you know, having a drink at the bar. So still have your game head on. Like, what do you want to
Yes.
get out of those events? How many contacts do you want to meet?
And Stephen, I know, I mean, you guys got a great networking event tomorrow. I think you're doing speed networking that I'm coming along to. But how has digital networking sort of changed the landscape? You know, do you feel people prefer that? Is it helped? Is it sort of held people back a little bit?
I think picking up on Ellie's point, a lot of people don't really enjoy being in a large room with lots of people they've not met before. I think sometimes it can feel really intimidating. We, prior to the pandemic, did all our events were physical, and we'd move them around the UK, and we'd get up to 100 people at some events. And then obviously when COVID came along, it wasn't possible. So what we did was we moved to a publishing model and started to do a lot of online events. And also we created a thing called the 5 p.m. Club, which is the one you're referring to, which everyone, by the way, is welcome to come to tomorrow night. I'll drop my details in the chat box. But those events are essentially about giving people the opportunity to meet as many people as possible in an environment which is within their control. So they're either in the office or they're working from home. It's at the end of the day, so they want to have a glass of wine by their hands, so be it, fantastic. But what we're really trying to do is put people in what we call speed networking. So we'll put people in groups of 6 or 7, and then we'll rotate those groups every 12 minutes. And that way you get to maximize the hour that we allotted for this particular session. And you get dropped into a room more often than not, people you've not met before. So what we ask people to do is essentially tell them who you are, what do you do, what drives you, what's your business about, kind of some personal stuff that you feel comfortable with, but also obviously professionally what you do, and also what you're looking for. Because I think if you are honest with people and say, look, we're a PR agency, we work in the fashion space, we're looking basically to connect with other marketing services agencies that can actually extend our proposition, or we need videographers, or we need events agencies, or we need this or other. People respond to that. The reason people go to networking events is because they actually want to help as well as receive. And you've got to remember that actually in that order, half of what you're doing is basically about giving people opportunities to do business with you and vice versa. So it's a two-way street. But the digital offer, I think, works well. It also means for a lot of working mums and dads who can't get out to these physical events, that they can do it at a time of day that suits them. And it also means, because our physical events move around the country, sometimes we've got one in Glasgow coming up, and that's obviously a physical event. It's not going to be practical for someone who's based in London to come to that. So the 5 p.m. clubs kind of filled that gap between the 6 p.m. clubs, which are physical, and the need for people to be able to get together regularly. And that can be great fun. I mean, I always find people come off with it's only an hour, and they come off afterwards, and there's this huge energy around the room. And because you're forced to put your camera on, and you're forced to basically be there rather than joining webinars where you don't have to, then people can actually put a face to the name, and it's a valuable use of people's time.
Yeah,
So
and
I'm rambling a bit.
no, I like the idea that you mentioned about the smaller groups, and I've noticed that as well. As like you said, people don't like that big sort of overwhelming kind of sense of walking into a big room. I think it's better when people can connect on a smaller level. So I think you're helping people by sort of breaking that down. And even Zoom has a great feature of breakout rooms where you can sort of just break out into sort of smaller groups to allow people to discuss. Um, so yeah, all good things. So let's talk a little bit about partnerships. Obviously, Ellie, I know you've taken on a partnerships role at the moment, and
Yeah.
I just feel like I think like obviously look, we work in new business with agencies. We've done so for years and years and years, and it's obviously been frigging difficult for the last couple of years, right? And people are looking for that let up, and I feel reaching outbound channels, relying on inbound, all that kind of stuff have suffered a lot. I think people are getting less and less cut through and traction, and I think what's happened is more people have started to look at how to build strategic partnerships or how to generate leads through referral more and more, and that's hence why we're sort of doing this. Tell us a bit about your role then as sort of like, was it a role that came in before? Like, what do you do as partnerships? And then we can get into like how you go about looking for potential business partners.
Yeah, so within my role at Reflect, I'm also a gatekeeper because I think when you run an agency that's got a good vibe and got a good thing going on, you also can't just partner up with anyone. So what's really key is getting the fit right, and where we start is the culture fit right. Do they align with our values? Then it's more like service providing, the service offering. Are there particular niches or sectors that will fit in nicely? Do we offer complementary services? And I think if you have a real client first approach to partnerships as opposed to a bottom line approach, that's where you get the real gold in the partnerships that are going to spark real collaboration and get you real results.
So with your role, is it how many of the leads that are generated come through partnerships now, in terms of like how important a role is partnerships now playing for Reflect, do you think?
Oh, because it's becoming more and more so. It wasn't one that we heavily lent into previously. So it's definitely me coming into the role is definitely more of a focus for us, 100%. But still, I'm quite new to the role, so I can't give you definitive figures as to it.
But to identify them, are you looking for like other agencies mainly that could refer leads, or is it beyond agencies? Is it all sorts of types?
No, so it's agencies is my background. So working with agencies, so agencies that are in specific niches. So at Reflect, we've got a real focus with charities, with travel, with econ, with property. So agencies that have specifics, special services within those areas obviously are going to make dream partnerships for us, especially if they offer complementary services. So we're looking at joint events we can run together, projects that we can be working on together, and also looking at maybe tech suppliers or suppliers that work within those industries as well that we can partner up with, because we've got the same customer base, right? So it just makes sense to try and work together, but again with the core like values, culture fit first and foremost.
Yeah, okay, great. And Dave, what about yourself? What kind of advice might you give people who are thinking about a partnership strategy or looking to sort of, identify partners? Where do you start on that sort of scale? Oh, you're on mute. Still.
What am I doing?
So
the values piece is absolutely massive, right? That fit has to be there. I could not agree with Ellie more. I think, particularly in the agency space, a problem I see a lot is people not understanding their ecosystem and where they sit in their value chain. And so anyone where there's a shared particular space of client, they go, oh, right, we should partner up. And then you get people going, I've given Nicole like 10 leads and she hasn't sent any back my way. And there's this like, and that's because depending on where you sit in the value chain of a customer, like people visit certain businesses in a certain order to solve the problems they want. And if you're a branding agency, then you might send loads of leads downstream to web and copy or video, but they're not necessarily in a position to send them back upstream your way, because typically by the time they're working with clients, that decision's already been made. They might do it a bit, but not as much. And so a starting point in identifying who to partner with is understanding who are service partners that you're going to refer to because they help deliver the end goal that you want for your client, and who are going to be referral partners where you help them deliver the end goal they're looking for their client. And just getting that right, I think, can really help add clarity in people's minds. And also when they're out networking, it allows people to be a bit more focused. Because I think once you understand that, you can get a really strong partner value proposition. And it's not the same as your client value proposition. It's going, that great stuff I do for the shared client, why does the partner care about that? Because then you can say to the partner, look, we're going to help you do this piece. And it just frames everything in a much nicer way. And it shows that you're genuinely interested in working in partnership. You're not just looking to get access to all of that partner's clients, right? And it just sets the relationship off on a much, much stronger footing. And then I think from there, it's about having processes, which I know can be a dirty word for a lot of people, particularly creatives. But all processes do is it gives you the structure to do the personal stuff consistently and be able to enjoy it. It's there the processes are there to remind you to do all the things that you would like to do and build the relationships and nurture them ongoing. It gives you the structure to be able to do that consistently, which means not only do you do it more often, but it takes less time because you're not kind of doing it all ad hoc. And for me, but it really comes from making sure you've got working with the right partners in the first place. Once you've done that, then all the other stuff around building communication processes and supporting your partners and co-marketing and all that good stuff, that happens really easily once you've got this shared values and this alignment in what you're looking to do for a client. So that's the fundamental part is really understanding who you offer massive value to as a partner, because they're the people that will then you become an essential part of their offering. Then they don't just want to refer you, they go, no, we need to refer these guys because they help us look great.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting because you both, Ellie and you both talked there about being more client-centric, right? Because ultimately, and I'm not sure enough agencies actually spend time doing this, is thinking about the bookends of what you do and how your services feed into other services. I mean, Stephen, you probably must see this a lot with the amount of different agencies and disciplines that you work on. I mean, maybe people are quite naive to, how they actually can complement each other. But for me, if I'm an agency, I would be looking to learn also from other agencies and thinking like, hold on, they're a specialist at, I don't know, say it was SEO, right? And you're building websites but you don't have that capability. So surely that's something that you want to build upon or would make a perfect, partner for you. And two heads are better than one. So, I mean, I don't know, Stephen, do you see that with when you're talking to agencies and when you're sort of working out referral plans and partner programs, how do you go about identifying which ones might be right for different people?
Part of it's in the onboarding process where we sit down with the lead on the agency side and identify the sorts of things that they tend to outsource. But equally, we talk about their proposition and understand exactly where they like to play and the areas where they either in the past haven't considered in terms of stretch. And to Ellie's point earlier on, you've got to find partners that are going to work from a chemistry point of view well with them, and they'll be a good fit. Equally too, obviously, you're looking to find ways in which both can benefit by extending their proposition. But that comes out of the partner plan, So what we'll do is we'll sit down, we'll talk to the principal lead or the MD or the head of new business, whoever it happens to be, and understand what have they done in the past, where have they got work from in the past, which sorts of agencies are good at referring opportunities to them, and then vice versa, what do they like to outsource, who do they outsource it to currently, and that really helps us to build their own black book. And because all the agencies we work with have come through and have been organically acquired, as it were, by Pimento, they come with a high degree of trust. Members, generally speaking, won't refer another member unless they actually believe them to be, good We do our own, obviously, checks, but it comes first of all with a degree of recognition that people recommend good people. They don't want to recommend people who perhaps they don't have a reputation with a relationship already. So there is that need for working with great people, and then secondly, identifying the need. Third, making sure that there is a strong cultural fit. And then fourthly, what we tend to do is actually do some trial pilot projects together. We put people together all the time. Some of the projects we've done over the years have involved 20, 30 different members working in a collaboration under the flag of convenience that is Pimento, but they're all independent of us. The clients understand that, they know that. But what we provide is the ability to coordinate all that resource and effectively act as almost a CMO for them. And that works well for a lot of clients. Others just want a single thing. I want a SEO agency, or I want a PPC agency, or I want a PR agency, whatever it happens to be. And that's very easy for us because we can then refer that direct to the right agency. But again, sometimes there might be 2 or 3 agencies that could do the job, but inevitably it'll come down to, as ever, availability. Do they have capacity? Secondly, do they have credibility in that sector? Do they really understand that particular sector? And the third thing, of course, is price. So it's important that in every category, we have 97 different marketing disciplines. We've got depth, we've got a dozen or so digital marketing agencies, a dozen or so branding agencies, and so on. Because otherwise you can't be true to your proposition of being truly bespoke.
Yeah, and I like the idea around integration so important there, because I think it's one thing partnering, but you've got to bring that together. Whether you might be white labeling, or you might be just offloading and referring something, but I guess it's important thinking about how they're going back to being client centric, how they're buying, what are they buying, what's the best way to do it. So you've got the commercial model in the back end between you and the partner, and then also about how that gets represented in the front end to the client, and how you sort of package that up. Because you can easily get sort of caught out there. But like you said about trialing things, I guess that's probably the best place to start. I think if you trial something on a small project, and learn more about each other as you go, then obviously that's what's going to sort of build sort of deeper foundations and deeper values.
You need that hub and spoke. If you're working with multiple agencies, then you need to represent them both to the client. You're accountable and responsible to the client, and you're accountable and responsible to the member. So there is a requirement, to have somebody who is conducting those resources. If it is a single proposition and it's straightforward referral, then there's no requirement for you to get it in. Once you've actually established who's the right agency and you've made that connection with the client, then you can step back. That said, we like to check in regularly to see how it's going, both from both ends, because what we're also seeking to do is drive deeper relationships with that client and add additional services. So one of the things we do is we'll incentivize the agency who's working on that particular brief to be actively looking out for other opportunities.
Yeah. And Ellie, what about yourself when you're going out there trying to initiate new partnerships? Do you actively target a certain type of agency that you're going to work with?
I do. So
record it and track it, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. So we have identified where our gaps are and what our clients' needs are. Coming in, I chatted to every head of our department within Reflect to work out where our gaps are and where potential partnerships could work and where we can really sort of surge forwards. Something I did really want to share, though, is an initiative that I've started since being at Reflect, which is a partner exchange, because you can't also underestimate, it's not just agency and agency, but it's team and team, and how your teams have really got to gel well together. So through partner exchange, what we're doing is knowledge sharing. So we've got coming up, one of our social media partner agencies is coming and doing a session on TikTok for our team. And then our team is sharing how SEO and paid media can then sort of supercharge the social media efforts. So we'll literally be in a sort of planning session potentially, but what we're actually doing is knowledge sharing and sharing what we're best at. But the teams are getting to know each other as well, and I think that's really key to successful partnerships.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think there's loads of steps like that people can take, right? Even so, actually, we just talked about a test project. Let's go back before that, because actually that's already a little bit risky. Like I spoke to a translation agency earlier, and just thinking about a joint blog that you could write together, or like you just said, a share and learn sort of session, or an event that you might sort of collaborate on, something where you talk to the same audience and you both can offer value to that person. You don't necessarily have to work on a project straight away. You could do things to understand one another, get to know one another, and just learn more from one another. And I think that naturally builds partnership, right? Through doing that.
Definitely, but don't underestimate the importance of the chemistry, not just between, say, founder and founder, but the chemistry between the teams that are going to be doing the do in the day to day. Because imagine if that's not right, and then you're already tied into a partnership together, and then that F's up, that's your credibility with your client gone. So it's so key to look at those steps along the journey and get them right.
Yeah, no, it's a really, really good point there, and sort of like, so getting them in the room and getting them to sort of collaborate beforehand. Dave, obviously, we're talking about partnerships and referrals. I don't know if you see them as sort of one of the same thing or quite separate. Be interested to get your view just on that.
So I do see them as... I wasn't on mute. I paused. I thought I was on mute. Oh my God, I've done the double whammy. I do see them as separate because while in my world they're both about getting more work in through word of mouth, or in the partnership sense, potentially handing it out, how you work with a referral partner compared to how you build a culture of referrals within your brand and get more referrals from your clients is different disciplines. It is a different way of looking at it. They're two different types of relationships. I talk about word of mouth being kind of the oldest form of marketing, and it's tribal. It speaks to our innate need and desire and want to connect and do business based on shared values, which has come up so often today. And I would say partners, they're your tribe who understand the value that everyone delivers, and everyone just needs to be motivated and encouraged and organized in the right way. Your referrers, your clients and your network and your fans, they're the tribe who love you and know what and want to help you, but quite often we need to maybe educate them as to into how they can actually help us. Like, we need to help the people that want to help us to do so. And when you're a bit more intentional about a kind of a client and wider referral strategy, what happens is that not only do you get more introductions made, but they tend to be better as well because people know who and what to refer. And the thing with the referral piece, Adam, that I'm going to try not to get too much on my soapbox here, but it's a real big bugbear. I've spoken to 3 successful agency owners very successful agency owners in the last week and a half. One of whom I'm bringing to Bath in a couple of weeks, Stephen, for the 6 p.m. club, by the way. But they have all grown to be very successful agencies purely organically, which is kind of chance to give it its right title through word of mouth. But they felt almost guilty about it. Like, it's almost shunned to have grown in this way through referrals. And I get it, but I can't understand it, because actually, when you grow that way, you're growing on reputation. You only grow that way if you deliver brilliant results, and not only brilliant results, but you do it in a brilliant way, because people refer you for what you do, not what you sell. It's that whole thing of people remember how you feel. You don't get referrals just because you deliver good results. You get referrals because people love working with you. And so it's a real bugbear of mine that it's almost, well, it isn't given the respect and the attention that it deserves, I don't think. And so having a really solid partnership strategy coupled with a strategy of building a genuine culture of referrals in your brand, so that it's not founder-led and just a few key people in the agency, but everyone in the team feels empowered to be doing this, because it's a customer service function. It's a customer success function. It's not a sales function, referrals. It's about knowing when and how and what to do with your clients. But it all comes down to the values piece again. You need the right values and the right culture in your agency to be able to have that as a company-wide strategy. So yes, I think they are different. They take different skills, different disciplines. So
yeah, it's interesting. Sort of one is, I guess, sort of more, as you said, more intentional, and referrals need a bit more education. I think it's interesting your view on referrals, or how you believe people perceive referrals to be quite like, like we talk about sales being a dirty word, referrals being a dirty word. We often get people coming to us and saying the majority of their leads come via referral, but, and I'll get into this because I think I want to talk about how you can be more proactive and intentional with referrals. and that they're looking to a way to not rely purely on referrals, because referrals to most people are, you know, a bit like British weather. You know, you just never know what's coming, right? And I think people are not intentional on that, and it's a bit like, yeah, like great, we get referrals, we've done well. I agree with you that it is a net, like a net promoter score. It's a part of, you know, if you're getting referrals, that means you're doing something right. So it's never something to be like poo-pooed. It's a really important part of your brand. But I wonder, you talked a bit about earlier about the processes. How can people be a bit more intentional around a referral strategy, so that it scales basically and it isn't just a bit, you know, serendipity?
Yeah, so it's a mix of two things, and it's process and it's education and support, because I always say you want to have process behind the scenes, but you still want it to feel completely personal front of house. It's referrals are still a personal thing. It is the most personal thing, because every time someone introduces you, they're entrusting you with their reputation, right? So it's a massive thing, and I think people think that either you have to leave it to chance, or over here you go down affiliate marketing and you spam the hell out of your clients with sales offers. And it's not. It's just about, you use my favorite word a couple of times, which is intentional. It's about just having a bit of a strategy behind it, and that is understanding the best times to ask in your customer journey. Like, when could these opportunities, when could it be the right, I call them wow moments, when are my customers most delighted? But then it's about understanding what you ask for. So we said, oh, do you know anyone who might like our services? Kind of really wishy-washy. It's about how can you make an ask without sounding all salesy and it feel natural. Like, referrals make the world go round. In our day-to-day lives, if you want to go to a new restaurant or watch a new telly program, you ask a friend, right? And I think the idea of having an intentional referral strategy is that it should feel as close to that as it possibly can in a business context. But you get that from the scale, and then the scaling piece. If you've identified what you're asking for and when, the scaling piece comes, as I said before, about building a culture of referrals, moving it from a founder or director-led thing to a brand-led thing, when anyone who's customer-facing feels they've got the confidence, and they feel empowered to do it, and they want to do it because they love working for the agency. And why wouldn't you want to get... The good thing about taking control of your referral strategy is that you grow with clients you love, because if you love the clients you've got, then they probably know other nice people, right? And so that's the power behind it. So it's a mixture of giving people the structure, but then the support and the confidence to be able to do it, because people get the ick around referrals, right? People can just feel that same ickiness you get walking into a cold room of people. People can feel like that about asking for introductions. So you've got to give them the right levels of support.
And I mean, that's one of the things I like about like Pimento, Stephen, is I think you remove some of that ick. You know, you make referrals seem quite natural. It feels like everybody's trying to help each other within the community a little bit. And, you know, at the beginning, all you're asking maybe is for a 5, 10, 15-minute call, you know, just to suss each other out, discuss your values and what you do, and move on. And I feel like you can never do that with enough people. I mean, have you got any, put you on the spot a bit, Steve, but any examples of a referral strategy that's you've seen work particularly well throughout your years?
Yeah, I've got plenty of that. But I mean, can I just comment on what Dave said there? Because I totally agree with the points he made. And I think actually trying to create a culture within all your agencies where everybody feels accountable and responsible for business development is essential. You know, we're all here to try and grow the businesses. The more successful the agencies we are that we work for or work in, the more likelihood that we're going to progress as individuals, develop new skills, earn more money, all that good stuff. So that I think it's a given, but it's not a given in the sense that very often it's the person in charge of partnerships or the person in charge of business development or the MD or whatever it happens to be. They've got accountability and responsibility, and everyone else is doing the doing, and no one's actually thinking about how can we create more opportunities and grow this agency. So that, I think, is essential. One of the things that we try to do, and we do this through stealth rather than training, is also recognize that Gen Zs and younger people in general actually feel more difficult about socializing and actually doing networking. So we created a thing called Club 30, which is centered around them going out and having a good time. So younger members in our agencies, We encourage them and people who aren't members to get together. We run social events. We put some money behind the bar. There is always an activity. You know, it's not like 20 years ago where the activity was going out for a drink. The activity is always kind of hinged around something that they want to do. And there's also inevitably some competitiveness about it, whether it's Fight Club or Sixes or whatever it happens to be. And everyone comes back, they've all had a good time. But the most important thing is they've established a relationship with somebody else in another agency. And actually, you would hope that through time, they'll feel confident enough to be able to develop that relationship and start to make some of those asks. You know, I don't think selling is a rude thing. I don't actually think that actually selling is something that we should shy away from. It's just about how you do it and tonally how you appropriate yourself in front of the person you're talking to, because we've all got different personality traits. We all respond to different stimuli. You've just got to put yourself in their shoes, understand what sort of person they are, and be appropriate. You know, don't sort of push your luck. You know, don't be insincere. Don't be unauthentic. You know, listen and respond accordingly. So there is that. Back to your question, which wasn't anything to do with that, but it was a build on Dave's. Networking strategies that work. I think that was the question, or don't work. Ones that work.
Do work.
Do work. Okay, first of all, there's millions of networking organizations out there. When I first moved to the Cotswolds 2 years ago, I felt a bit lonely up here, so far as there weren't thousands of agencies around me, unlike where I was living beforehand. So I joined up in a networking organization locally here, and I went along for the first 12 months. And it was great because I got to meet people from all sorts of backgrounds. And I found somebody to do my kitchen. I found somebody to basically fix my roof, somebody who basically could give me financial advice. But there was a real lack of marketeers in these groups. And also they were very structured. You know, there was a way in which they worked, and also quite expensive, to be honest. Having said that, I got to meet some very sincere, nice people, but they weren't relevant to my business. They weren't going to be able to help take my business forward. I was particularly good at giving them business. When there's a mortgage lady who runs her own business, I think I put about 15 mortgages through her in the last 18 months. She's done very well out of me. She's lovely. She's fantastic. If you need a mortgage organizer, this girl's fantastic. But that's great. But it's not going to help me in my business. So I think I'll be fairly, you know, mixing the circles where you like to actually generate more business opportunities for yourself. There will be the odd organization that you do get value out from that isn't necessarily in your space. But actually in those situations, they probably might need marketing services. So for example, we work with an organization called Samfire, based down in the West Country, run by a guy who's a complete networking genius. It's actually fantastic. And everything he does is centered around kind of the core industry in the Southwest, which is hospitality. So hotels, restaurants, bars, clubs, those are the majority of his members. But some of the events I've been to with him have been outstanding, and I've built relationships with people. And frankly, we've also enjoyed selling services to some of those members. So it's become a really useful thing. But he is the exception, I would suggest. The vast majority of stuff that's outside of our core area, don't bother with. You know, unless you've got an ulterior motive like I had, I've moved into a new area, then don't bother with it. Focus on marketing networks, both the ones that include clients. So in the old days, oyster catchers and used to run, I think a 6 weekly session where they would have half the room full of brands and half the room full of agencies. And you could tell who was the brand and who was the agency by the number of people standing around an individual. So it's quite threatening for brands, but somehow they managed to get them along. It was probably the persuasive talents of Suki in those days. But the vast majority of these events, you know, if they're not centered, as I say, around marketing people, then I wouldn't waste time.
Yeah, no, makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's very hard to network, I think, with brands. They've sort of run for the hills. Although I was at Madfest recently, and there were quite a lot of brands milling about there. Cool. Just to put it out there, if anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to open to sort of Q&A. We've got a few other things we're going to talk around, just around measuring sort of referrals and some processy bits as well. But do feel free to sort of jump in and ask any questions and use this time, you know, to make it valuable for you. I mean, you know, Ellie, I'm thinking about obviously your role and like not everyone might be fortunate enough to have a partnerships, you know, manager or someone doing it themselves. So like, just what advice would you give to someone, maybe time poor, is thinking about how to integrate networking activities into their kind of weekly, daily routine, and how often they should be getting out, do you think, trying to do this kind of thing?
You've got to make it fit with your life and your family and what else you've got going on. But for me, starting out, I'd say set yourself a target, especially if you're new to it. So say for the next 6 months, I'm going to try and go to 10 events. I'm going to make sure I go to 5 online things, and I'm going to go to 5 in-person things. And I'm going to start from this date and then see where you get with it. I'd also be talking to peers. I'd be talking to other people that I know and seeing what events work well, what events people rate, what communities people really rate, and start from there.
Yeah, definitely. You got to hold yourself accountable, right, at the end of the day for this kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And Dave, you talked about process and things like that. Just thinking, something we do in our CRM all the time is we tag people as like recommenders and suppliers. And to us, like a recommender is like, I suppose, thinking about your language, I don't know if that's probably more of a partnership, I would say. A supplier is someone who could work into us, like we could work alongside, we could outsource work to. Whereas a recommender is not someone we would do, but someone we could sort of partner with and just could refer us work, but isn't someone we would work with, if you like, on a project. But one thing I've always done is kind of like, not intentionally, but we've always intentionally tagged them as such. But, just looking at measuring the number of those people that we have in our database is certainly in the, I don't know, hundreds of people over the years. Is that something you do or advocate for people to do, or, and then how do you kind of take it on to measure success of this?
So yeah, I absolutely would, and I think I think it comes back to that value chain thing that I spoke about, and yes, I think I call them referral partners and service partners. It's who potentially passes me leads and all that piece. So I absolutely would. I think it's really the first step is being really clear about where you sit in that overall customer journey, and then I absolutely would mark those relationships. It allows you to be more effective when you're networking. I'm not saying don't go and have fun and mingle in the right ways, but at least when you're having conversations, you can be a bit more intentional about where or where not this may lead, because it can be very easy to go to lots of enjoyable events and have lots of beers with lots of nice people and then it not really go anywhere. And so I think the starting point is look, we're here for a good time, not a long time. So let's do work with good people that we enjoy doing work with, but let's try and keep some business behind it. And if we're at an event where we know we're not doing business, fine. As long as we've chosen that, right? Like, I'm going to this event purely because I want to mingle with my peers and have a good time and blow off steam about a particular client or whatever it may be. That's fine as long as that's your purpose. I think as soon as you start being more aware of the people that are in your ecosystem and the value that they can deliver or you can deliver to them, you can be more targeted. And in terms of a CRM, for me, I would track things. I mean, some of the obvious things, like if they make an introduction to you, make sure that's logged in your CRM. I say CRM, your CRM could be a spreadsheet, right? I would say back of a fag packet or a beer mat, but at the very least, people, please have a spreadsheet. And then, but more importantly, that if someone's passed you a lead, let them know how that conversation's gone. Keep them updated. Like, it's a surefire way to get more introductions is to treat the introduction well and let the referrer know. Like, so many people miss that step of keeping people in the loop. So if there was anything that I would be tracking in terms of introductions and referrals, it would be what's going on with the person that they've introduced me to, and have I got back to them? Like, just keep them updated. It's
And I suppose there's also how many leads you're giving as well, how many people you're referring to, because I think it's like we said, it's about giving. It goes both ways, and sometimes like you might have to help 5 people and refer them leads or make introductions, and then they might do the same back to you. But I guess you can't expect it to always be one-sided if you're not reciprocating. And the other thing was just incentives. I don't know if you guys got any thoughts of what's worked around incentivizations, because obviously, you know, a lot of people do like 10% kickbacks and things like this.
Shall I? We offer a commission on the first 12 months of earnings from a particular client of referrals. But that said, that's never the incentive. The incentive is keeping people in the loop of the good work that we're doing. And I think something that we've maybe missed here is making sure that any potential referrals or potential suppliers that you're chatting to are part of your marketing funnel, and that you're trickle feeding the good stuff that you're up to. Because with the best intentions in the world, you can't remember everybody that you've met. That might be a good idea. But if they happen to have seen on LinkedIn that cool thing that we're doing on gamification, or I might just have happened to invite them to the webinar that we're running, but also then I'm going to catch up with them next month at something else that's just embedding, like, for us, it's like reflect. They do that. Oh, don't forget we do this. Oh, do you remember we do that? And that cannot be one person's job, whether you're a founder of the agency or whether you have got somebody that's in charge of partnerships. That cannot be one person's responsibility, because you've also got to be out there doing all the meeting and the connecting. So just making sure that you are trickle feeding the good stuff that you're up to, because with referrals, like you said, it's serendipitous. You don't know when those opportunities are going to come up. So don't bloody miss them when they might be there because they've forgotten that you do the certain thing that you do.
Exactly, like David mentioned earlier, that education piece, like is so important, because people, it's hard enough to, you know, remember what your business does and selling all the facets of it, let alone somebody else's business, and you're not just going to know it to hand. So I mean, I remember back in the day, I think I've created almost like mini marketing decks, or like one page PDF of like, this is our target audiences and this is what we do and this is what we're looking for, just to simplify that. I don't know, like I don't know if many agencies have things like that, but I think you need to market to referrers, partners, recommenders in a different way you would to a prospect. You know, because it's how you can work in collaboration with them.
We're starting a partnerships newsletter just for that exact purpose. Just here we are, this is what we do.
Yeah, I mean, that goes on to, like, if you work with any SaaS products, they have like entire like portals where you can like download logos and all that kind of stuff and get educational material. So maybe that's something to think about, back end of your website, a partners section, you know what I mean, where people can access that and they're like, oh, I'm thinking of partner with that agency, how can I work with them? You know, it's making that stuff accessible and easy to digest. I guess you want to make yourself you want to make yourself easy to buy to a prospect, but you want to make it just as easy to a partner to refer you.
Although in my experience, don't leave it up to people to find stuff themselves.
No, send them the link.
They've got to download it. If they've got to go and find it somewhere, they're not going to find it. Literally hand it to them and then hand it to them again, and then present it differently and then hand it to them again, because they're busy people, and it's nothing to do with there's no malice or thoughtlessness. Everyone's just doing their own do. So you can't get them to be thinking about your business proposition as well. You have to be literally handing it to them regularly.
Cool. Well, we've got a few more minutes. Has anyone got any? I'll ask you guys for some imparting knowledge to sign off. But has anyone got any questions? Anything got something burning they want to ask? Now is your chance. You've got 4 wise owls on the call. If not, whilst you're thinking, guys, do you have any kind of like anything we haven't covered off today, or any kind of words of wisdom you want to leave us with before we enjoy our Wednesday afternoons? Go on, Ellie.
Mine is always know your elevator pitch and don't try and make yourself sound smart. My favorite phrase is explain it like you're explaining it to a nana. Make it really clear, really simple, and make it memorable. And if you're not too sure, how the hell are you going to like rely on anyone else to remember what you did? And also practice small talk, because it's a skill that you can learn. It's not necessarily given. So next time you're at a family event, you know, chat to that niece or uncle that you may have avoided ordinarily and ask them some questions about themselves, because practice makes perfect with it.
Words of wisdom.
Yeah.
I've got three additional ones. One is don't ignore body language. We're doing sort of both physical networking with E32 and calls like this. And if somebody basically is clearly not paying attention, or they've drifted off, or in this case they've fallen off the call, they're clearly not interested. So don't waste their time or your time. Just be polite and sort of move on. The other thing is, don't just collect contacts without building relationships. We're all guilty of that, particularly on LinkedIn. You know, kind of the more contacts we've got, the more distribution power we've got. Reality is you want to try and make them as relevant as possible, because the value is in the quality, not necessarily the quantity. And the other thing is, don't overshare. You know, one of the ways which we kind of expose ourselves and actually make ourselves authentic is to start talking about our kids in the first 5 seconds, or start talking about other aspects of our lives. I think someone said earlier on, it's about listening, and listen first, understand first, find out what motivates them. I mean, if they are disclosing parts about their personal life, then obviously, if you've got similar views or what have you, then obviously you can build on that. I'll give you one more, which is, don't just network when you need something. You know, it is an investment. You're investing time, much the way you say to your brands. When you're talking to your customers, when you're talking to your clients, you talk about the short term and you talk about the long term, whether it's the brand building effect, the awareness effect, versus basically driving immediate sales. And that's the same for networking. You know, you've got to build relationships and build that respect over time, in order that in the future, at some point in time, you can ask for some favors, you know, push out, help people, and then inevitably you'll get help back the other way when you need it.
Really good. Love all of those. And I'm falling into the guilty category in some instances. So thank you for reminding me. Dave?
Yeah, I'm going to go for remembering that there's a saying I use a lot, which is, it's not common sense, it's experience. We all think that what we do is common sense and it's easy, and but it's not, it's our experience. And the same is true of our partners, our clients, whatever it may be. We may think that they would just automatically, oh, if they hear someone saying this and it sounds like the sort of thing I do, of course they'd refer us in, because it's just common sense that we could help them. And it's not. You do need to ask. If you want referrals to be a little bit less like the British weather and more like a long hot Spanish summer or something, then you need to just be more intentional, do it in a polite way, and just don't be afraid to ask. People love to make introductions. I think that's the biggest thing around the ick, is to remember that people love to make introductions. When you make an introduction, you probably love it, right? It makes you feel great. Yet we all think that there's this thing that we can't ask. So it's to just do all that great stuff around building relationships, but then don't be afraid to leverage those relationships, because people want to help. Most people are nice people and they want to help. You just got to make it easy for them to do that.
Amazing. Well, I loved all of those points, which we will, obviously we're recording this, so we'll share this out. We'll turn it into a blog, and it'll be on the BD Matters website. If you want to hear more, there's fairly more on the BD Matters site in terms of masterclasses we've got coming up, meetups, different events and things. So do get involved. Obviously, Stephen sent the link for the Pimento event tomorrow if you want to get involved in that as well. Yeah, drop me a note if you've got any questions, anything else. But thank you all for being here. And thank you, Ellie, Dave, Stephen. Been a pleasure, as always. We'll see you soon.